Shalom. What's up, everyone? This video is meant as a form of interaction with you guys. I'm not really teaching you anything in this video or attempting to teach you or reveal anything to you. I just want you to think for yourself for a moment. You are thinking, or else you wouldn't be following my videos, because my videos, man, I'm not boasting, I'm just being real. My videos, you have to be willing to think and to do your own research in order to follow my videos. Or else you won't understand the thing I'm saying here. So I want you to think for a moment. We went through 9/11, the 11th of September 2001. We know the Twin Towers collapsed, that was real. The Pentagon was attacked, that was real. And there was another, somewhere in a forest, there was a plane crash. At least alleged plane crash. A few months after the attacks of 9/11, people had their suspicion that something ain't right here. And of course, you had conspiracy theorists claiming that it was the Bush administration doing it themselves and all of that. And I've witnessed a lot of those conspiracy theories come and go. Many conspiracy theories were disproven wrong years back. Were proved wrong, years back. But there's one thing I was just thinking. When you think about the narrative of 9/11, you have this old man living in a cage. He's on a dialysis machine because his kidneys don't work. Being in a cage with a kidney problem, and yet he was using old-fashioned phones, and with old-fashioned phones from the 90s, he managed to lead a great operation against the United States Air Force to hijack two Boeing planes and crash them into the Twin Towers. And accidentally, that same day, that same moment, there was a drill going on with the Air Force where they were practicing, where they were simulating a terror attack. Basically, a drill is when the military or the police they simulate a scene that's fake because it's staged, but it has to appear real because they're training. What would we do if something like this happened? And the same day that the drill happened, there was a real terror attack. So let me get this straight. The US Air Force, which is one of the best advanced air forces in the world, they have this big radar system above the whole north region of North America. Any plane or helicopter, small or big, that enters into the airspace, they will notice it on the radar immediately. And you're trying to tell me that two planes were hijacked and the Air Force didn't knew about it? It just happened like that? Oh, and it gets better. After that, they went for Saddam Hussein in Iraq, saying he had weapons of mass destruction. So now they had to invade Iraq in order to secure America's freedom, America's safety. Hold on, I thought you said it was Osama bin Laden, somewhere in Afghanistan, maybe. So why did they went after you? Just check the story, guys. The story does not add up at all. There's no logic in it. There was no evidence to back it up, yet most people just believed it because the governments and the media said it was true. You go down the line further, you encounter more stories that basically don't make any sense when you just sit back, lean back, and think about it. For real. I just want you to think for a while, okay? I've noticed that the more absurd a story is, the more likely it is that people will believe it. You see, if someone would say the moon does not exist, the moon is imagination of our minds, then everyone would look at that guy and say, you need to go to a mental institution. Sir, yeah, you have problems, dude. And when a story is in line with people's perceptions, even if that story has contradictions in it, even if that story makes no sense, even if that story contradicts itself, just because it's in line with people's way of thinking, they will receive it. The only thing you have to do is repeat the story over and over again, and people will live out the story. And if you use, and what I've also noticed, if you use scientists with it and politicians, man, people are going to fall for it immediately. Because there's an authority that claims the story is real, and the story is also in line with your way of thinking, of how you perceive things, so you will accept it, most likely. And and whenever someone else comes by and tells you that story is not, it doesn't add up, because you feel comfortable with your way of thinking and your way of seeing things, and the story has been confirmed by authority figures, you've made the story your story. So if someone comes by and tells you the story doesn't add up, you become upset with them. Because now they're not only challenging the story, they're also challenging your way of thinking, your way of viewing things. And you see, for example, for years there were people saying that throughout Europe, the police corpses and political parties were censoring the media and were covering up rapes and robberies by gangs that consisted out of people from North Africa or Arab countries. Such things happened throughout Europe, and many of those gangs arose from the immigrant population. But such things were not aired on TV, neither spoken of on the radio, neither did they appear in newspapers. There were several exceptions, several local newspapers and local media that talked about it, but they were often warned by the state shortly afterwards. After New Year's Eve of 2016, I mean, when from the 31st of December to the 1st of January to 2016, what happened past New Year's Eve is that another again there was censorship. But after 4 days, there was so much complaining on social media that they had to admit that it happened. And now many more cover-ups are being exposed. And there, from Sweden, there was even a police officer in a high rank that made clear that such things are happening for years, but we were not permitted to talk about it because it might feed extreme right-wing populist parties. So they're even admitting it that they were not permitted to be honest with their citizens. They're public servants, but we're not allowed to be honest and transparent with the public. Well, people have been saying those things for years, but because the fake stories people were being told by the media and the government, I'm not saying governments as if everyone involved in a government office is involved in this, okay? I'm not doing that. There are people working at the governments who have no idea what the system is doing. They're just being used by the system without them being aware of it, without their consent, okay? But the fake stories that we have been fed to all these years, I'm not just talking about 9/11, even before that. We often didn't question them. And the reason we didn't question them was because we were blinded. And you see, some of you used to be very violent against people that doubted the status quo. But your own experience and your observation revealed onto you that I need to be on my guard. And what I'm trying to say in this video is that, and I've already made it clear, but I need to repeat it for you, people are willingly to believe anything as long as it's in line with their way of thinking that they are accustomed to. That does not mean that their way of thinking is right, neither that their way of thinking is true nor worthwhile. But if something affirms their way of thinking and there's some authority that confirms it, they will believe it 99% of the time. You see, it happened during Nazi Germany. It's the same thing that happened during Pol Pot's reign. It's the same that happened in socialist China. It's the same thing repeating itself throughout history over and over again. And listen this. It goes even deeper than that. When people believe a BS story, the only reason they are believing that story is because there is some perceived benefit in believing in the story. Because let's be real, folks. Most of the time, when people receive reports from the media or from the government, people don't check it. Let's be real here. Most of the time, people don't check it. Why? Because, listen, if there are authority figures out there who receive homage from the community, and you find out those authority figures are lying, okay? Those authority figures are lying. Now you understand why are they lying. Okay, you can say they want to make money. Okay, you want to make money. But then there's another side to it. Why are people permitting being lied to? Because a policy of deception cannot be successful unless the population consents into being lied to. And how do they consent being lied to? By imagining that the story they hear is that's all there is. They willingly deny that there might be more to the story, that there might be more to the reports. It's basically they draw a line in the sand and they forget that they've drawn a line. So they imagine that everything inside the line is the whole beach. And they deny that they're denying that they've denied. You understand what I'm saying here? So that's how people give consent to be into being deceived. And then you have to ask yourself, why are they giving consent to be deceived? And then it's being revealed because there are things around them that they don't want to discuss, that they don't want to admit. So when a story arrives that distracts them from themselves, and that story is affirming their illusion, they will be glad with it. So don't think that just because you are sincere, just because you show evidence that people are going to receive it. It happens all the time, even in a scientific community. Scholars even admit in their articles if they have rejected evidence. Also in court cases, there are times evidence appears that someone is not the perpetrator, someone is not the killer, or not the guy, or not the woman, but the justice department, the court just refuses and overrules the evidence. Such things happen. Okay? I mean, for example, in the USA, it often happens that if an accused individual is attractive, that the jury, which are random people selected from the population, that the jury would be favorable towards them. And if someone is from the same ethnicity as the majority as the the jury, and there is doubt whether he or she did it, people will be more considerable to look at the counter evidence. But if someone is not from same ethnicity, or they don't fall into what they consider beauty, they're more harsh towards the individual. I mean, I want you to consider all of these things. Why? Because you can't just trust what people tell you. Am I promoting paranoia here? No, I'm not promoting paranoia at all. I'm not promoting it at all. I'm promoting alertness. Just because you don't harm other people does not mean people may not want to exploit you. And listen, I'm talking to believers now, okay? You have the Lord, right? Having the Holy Spirit means that you have discernment. That's why, as a believer, you agree with the promises of the Most High, you agree with Christ Jesus, and you grow in knowledge and grace. You grow in it. The more you walk with the Lord, the more you grow in grace, the more you grow in discernment, the more things you're going to notice. Some may ask Rashid, how come you've become so wise? Well, I just agree with the Lord. And the Lord will have His unique way in your life. How He may not educate you in through the same difficulties as He used with me, but that's why you should rely on the Lord for yourself. You should never depend upon the faith of someone else. Never. Anyway, I'm going to close with this. Just always remember, when people are holding on to a way of thinking without any regard whether it's real or not, those people, 99% of the time, they will believe any BS story. Even if the story contradicts itself in the first sentence, they will believe the story as long as it supports their worldview. Even if they admit that the story doesn't end up, they will still believe it because it's in agreement with their worldview. And even now, I'm talking about Europe now, that it's obvious that political parties have lied to their voters, have cheated on their voters. People still remain loyal to what has been exposed. Even now that there's a rape epidemic going throughout Europe, even now that there are many no-go zones throughout European countries, people remain as if the evidence is not there. And don't think it's strange, because this has been happening throughout history. Also in intimate, close personal relationships, this happens. Don't even start about personal relationships. Okay? How often haven't you seen? You can also see this in movies. You don't really have to witness it in real life. Even in movies, they show you this. You have a woman who has become infatuated with a guy. The guy is cheating on her into her face, and people are defending her against the guy, but she keeps going to the guy. And she even turns on the people that came to her aid. It also happens the other way around. That you have a guy defending his sweetheart, and also turns on the people that are trying to take him away from danger. Well, that same sweetheart madness is what's happening with the masses today. They are infatuated with a lie, infatuated with an illusion. And despite the illusion being harmful and detrimental to their health and their well-being, they keep defending it. They become violently in defending it. Don't think that many of those right-wing populist groups, I won't that much call names, but you have a lot of those populist extreme right-wing groups throughout Europe now. They have their racial tendencies against, they are quite xenophobic, but don't think they are concerned with the well-being of Europe. They're not concerned with the well-being of Europe. They just want their sweetheart illusions to remain intact. And a lot of immigrants are a threat to that sweetheart illusion. So now that all those hidden crimes are revealed of immigrants, now that they're using that as an excuse to scapegoat and harass immigrants to act out their frustration concerning their sweetheart illusion. Okay? And the same counts for those leftist people, people that are left wing in their political views. By the way, not all people that are left wing in their political views are like this, okay? But a lot of them I notice are. Okay, I'm not saying most of them, but a lot of them are. A lot of them are just as those right wing populists. They just want to preserve their sweetheart delusions. Even though a huge, even though multiculturalism has a lot of side effects that are painful, such people ignore all those side effects, pretend they don't exist, even if evidence is in front of them. Well, I'm going to close this video now. Remain at peace, remain in agreement with Christ, and don't let anyone deceive you.